Cinema often forces us to confront the darker corners of society, and few films do this as powerfully as Fritz Lang's M and Michel Haneke's Funny Games. These two films, made decades apart, explore the societal reaction to violence in deeply unsettling ways. One focuses on mob justice, and the other implicates audiences in the spectacle of suffering. Today, we're going to examine two pivotal scenes that embody these critiques: the mob court scene in M and the rewind scene in Funny Games. In M, Fritz Lang brings us to a dark and chaotic Berlin where a child serial murderer, Hans Beckert, is captured not by the police but the city's criminal underworld. In the climactic mob court scene, Beckert is placed before a kangaroo court where the mob demands immediate retribution for his heinous crimes. The criminals, who themselves are no strangers to violence, are able to justify their actions by arguing that Beckert's crimes are so abhorrent and disgusting that he does not deserve a fair trial. Beckert's plea forces the audience to grapple with the uncomfortable question of, is it ever acceptable to abandon justice for vengeance? The mob claims moral superiority, but their actions, which are violent, irrational, cruel, mirror the brutality that they're seeking to condemn. Lang's use of shadows and close-ups emphasizes that hypocrisy, turning the mob into a faceless mass and then humanizing Beckert, even in his monstrosity. The scene critiques the societal tendency to let fear and hysteria override ethics and judgment. Michel Haneke's Funny Games, on the other hand, takes a radically different approach. In the infamous rewind scene, the killers Peter and Paul lose control for a brief moment, and then Peter is killed by Anna. But when Paul grabs a remote control and rewinds the scene, erasing the victory and restoring their dominance. This act of narrative manipulation is more than a shocking plot device, it's a direct critique of the audience. Haneke refuses to let us sit passively as an audience. He breaks the fourth wall, which subverts cinematic conventions, and then he's forcing us to confront our complicity as viewers. Why are we watching this violence? Do we find it entertaining? The rewind scene is a metaphor for how violence in media is endlessly consumed, rewound, repeated, stripped of meaning or consequence. Ultimately, it's all cyclical. While these films use very different approaches, their critiques do overlap. Both the mob in M and the audience in Funny Games are complicit in cycles of violence. In M, the mob abandons justice for the spectacle of retribution, or in Funny Games, Haneke exposes how media, and by extension the audience, normalizes and perpetuates violent narratives. Ultimately, both M and Funny Games challenge us to confront the uncomfortable truths about how we react to violence. Are we outraged? Are we entertained? Are we complicit? These films remind us that violence isn't just something that happens, it's something we shape, we perpetuate, and sometimes we even justify it. The question is, how do we break that cycle?